Prepare for a train wreck. That's how a senior Senate Republican is describing the confirmation hearings for President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet picks that are set to begin this week. But will the potentially explosive hearings actually stop any of Trump's most extreme nominees from getting confirmed? Welcome to the No Spin Zone. Grass Grievances starts right now. Let the confirmation hearings begin. With less than a week left in President Joe Biden's term, the Republican-led Senate is slated to hold more than a dozen hearings this week for President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet picks. The goal for Republicans to confirm as many of Trump's nominees by his inauguration on January 20th. And while historically senators of both parties have deferred to the president with respect to who they want in senior administration roles to help them carry out their vision for the country, Trump has nominated a handful of radical and unqualified people that even some Republicans have raised objection to. And that matters because the Constitution requires the Senate to vote to confirm a president's cabinet nominees, as well as their nominees for other senior positions in the government. A simple majority vote is needed for confirmation in the 100-seat Senate. Republicans hold 53 seats, while Democrats and independents, who caucus with them, hold 47 seats. And in the event of a tie, the soon-to-be Vice President, J.D. Vance, will vote. This all means that Republicans can only afford three defections if all Democrats vote against a nominee. So for Democrats, the goal during this week's confirmation hearings are to make it explicitly hard and embarrassing for all Senate Republicans to vote in unison on every one of Trump's picks. And Democrats will attempt to do this by grilling Trump's nominees about not only how they would handle certain challenging situations that may arise in their new role, but also past decisions they have made. This process, undoubtedly stressful and challenging, will likely not be a problem for the vast majority of the people Trump has chosen to join him in his second administration. While Democrats might not agree with these folks on policy, they are well within the norm of traditional cabinet picks. However, for at least three of Trump's nominees, how they perform in their hearing could prove decisive. And I'm specifically referring to Trump's picks to lead the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth, Trump's choice for Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and Trump's nominee for Health Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. These very unorthodox picks have a slew of issues in their backgrounds that Democrats and potentially some Republicans will highlight during their confirmation hearings. But interestingly, of these three, only one, Pete Hegseth, actually has a confirmation hearing scheduled. In less than 24 hours from now, on Tuesday, January 14th, Hegseth is set to face questioning from the Senate Armed Services Committee, where he undoubtedly will be asked about well-documented accusations of sexual misconduct against him and excessive drinking. Late last week, the top two members of the Armed Services Committee were briefed on the FBI's findings from that background check into the former Fox News host. But they were not given copies of the report to share with their colleagues. Not given copies of the report. This lack of transparency raising the concern of Democrats who say they want to know more about Hegseth's finances, especially after learning late last year that Hegseth reached a hush money settlement with a woman who accused him of sexual assault in 2017. Outside of Hegseth's personal behavior, he has faced other criticism from Democrats and Republicans for comments about limiting the role of women in the military, and his alleged financial mismanagement of not one, but two nonprofit veterans groups. How Hegseth responds to all of this could potentially convince some moderate Senate Republicans, like Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, to vote against him. Hegseth could also face trouble winning the support of more traditional Republicans like Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, who surprisingly declined to meet with Hegseth, and from Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, the Army Reserve veteran and sexual assault survivor, initially calling for a process to vet the allegations against Hegseth before downplaying her concerns about his past behavior after threats of a primary challenge from Trump. Remember, Hegseth can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes, and I would expect fireworks tomorrow. Which is potentially why the 12 other Trump nominees expected to face confirmation hearings this week are far less controversial. But just because the folks here do not appear as radioactive as Hegseth, Gabbard, and RFK Jr., that doesn't mean we won't learn new information in these hearings that could very well jeopardize their nominations. On Wednesday, January 15th, I will be paying very close attention to Kristi Noem's confirmation hearing to lead the Department of Homeland Security. The South Dakota governor, who has proudly written about shooting and killing her 14-month-old dog, is now facing accusations that she refused to deploy her state's National Guard as historic flooding ravaged southeastern South Dakota last summer. According to the New York Times, citing the high costs and arguing that the Guard should only be called for a, quote, true crisis, Noem left thousands of her constituents to cope with widespread devastation that left homes and businesses ruined in the face of mounting calls for help. Her reaction shocking the state's very Republican residents and lawmakers, especially because Noem previously spent millions of taxpayer dollars deploying South Dakota's Guard to the U.S.-Mexico border. Yes, in a stunt designed to get national attention, Noem spent around $3 million to send South Dakota's Guard more than 1,000 miles south to Texas to allegedly stop illegal immigration into the U.S. But when South Dakotans needed help from a natural disaster, their governor not only refused to activate the Guard, but abandoned them to campaign outside of her state for Donald Trump. Remember, this is the woman Trump has picked to be Secretary of Homeland Security, a department which oversees FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Doesn't sound like she cares about that. So while Noem was expected to be confirmed before this new reporting, I would expect some very tough questions from Democrats about this at her hearing on Wednesday that could potentially change some Republican minds about her fitness for office. Finally, I want to call your attention to the confirmation hearings for Pam Bondi, Trump's pick for Attorney General. Unlike all of Trump's other nominees so far, Bondi is set to face off with the Senate Judiciary Committee in a 2-day event beginning on Wednesday and concluding on Thursday, January 16th. The former Florida Attorney General is, of course, Trump's second pick for AG after his first choice, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, withdrew from consideration after facing sexual misconduct allegations. And while Bondi will almost certainly get confirmed, she is in fact qualified, it will be interesting to see how she answers questions regarding Trump's promise to install a loyalist at the DOJ with the explicit intent of prosecuting his political enemies. That is categorically not the job of the Attorney General, But the question is how Bondi will walk a fine line between not upsetting Trump and stating her independence from him, which she likely needs to do in order to get confirmed. As for when we will hear from Gabbard and RFK Jr., that remains to be seen, but you can count on full coverage here. Thank you for watching Graph's Grievances. Let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, share, and join me tomorrow for more.